Y'all, y'all ready for this?
What's up, Bodybuilding.com listeners? My name is Danielle Bitts, and welcome back to the BBcom podcast. Today, I'm joined by Todd Anderson. Todd is the co-founder of Dream Recovery, a company dedicated to helping athletes and high achievers sleep and recover at the highest level. He's worked with Fortune 500 companies, professional athletes, and celebrities on optimizing their performance. Todd holds over a dozen certifications in strength and conditioning, nutrition, and performance. His journey first began as a walk-on football player at Michigan State University, where he went on to earn a scholarship and help bring home a Big Ten championship. His college career would then lead him to an NFL opportunity for the Rams, which furthered his journey in the world of athletics and performance. He later took a deep dive into the physiology and unique needs of swimmers outside of the water when now wife and Olympic medalist Katie Hoff made a comeback for the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. Todd is the co-founder of Synergy Dryland along with Katie as they work with world-class swimmers and teams across the country on performance optimization. Todd continues to produce educational content across his platforms to help people not only sleep better but live healthier lives. His mission in life is to help others realize their potential by prioritizing sleep, recovery, and overall life optimization. Todd, welcome to the pod. Excited to dive in with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm stoked to be here. It's very nostalgic.
Yeah, absolutely. You were telling me on the phone you've been a long-time BBcom fan.
I mean, you know, like you said, I was a walk-on, but I feel like I doubled my college tuition just in like supplement monthly packages from Bodybuilding.com. So, some people call home to ask for beer money, and I would just call home to ask for Bodybuilding.com money to spend on the site.
I love that. I love that. We have an OGer in the house
Definitely.
Today. I feel like this is going to be one of my favorite episodes and a great way to close out the year with all of you. We're talking all things sleep. So what you should be doing throughout your day to set yourself up for a good night's sleep, the environment to create when it's time to sleep, and the tools you can add in to optimize your sleep to feel and perform better. So Todd, let's get into it by starting out with what does sleep do for the body? And we're going to break this down in a couple of different areas, but let's just break down one, the importance of sleep, and two, what cycles are involved in sleep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a shorter answer to talk about what doesn't sleep do in the body. I mean, it truly is like the tide that raises all ships as far as health and wellness goes. And, you know, when you look at all the buckets of performance and wellness, like, you know, nutrition and hydration and, you know, fitness and strength training, all these different buckets, sleep is really the only one that spans across all of them and impacts all those buckets, but it can impact them in two directions. It's like coaches always say, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I think that's how sleep affects your life. It's either positively impacting your life and it's allowing you to be the best version of yourself, or it's kind of taking away and you're living that suboptimal mindset, or I guess suboptimal physiology. And usually, you know, that doesn't allow you to do the things you want to do.
Absolutely. So let's start by breaking down what are the different cycles of sleep, right? I feel like a lot of people here got to get your REM sleep, got to get that deep sleep. We're both wearing Whoops today, and it certainly helps it easier. You know, helps it be more manageable to measure these cycles of sleep. But I feel like general population, they don't know what this means, right? So let's break down the stages of sleep and how each one impacts recovery.
Yeah. So, you know, I think really, I mean, what I want to talk about is just the mindset around this too. I think that's important because there's so much data coming out that it makes it difficult to understand what to focus on. Like you said, people are asking about REM sleep specifically. Well, and that's not really how you should look at things. It's more about the proportions of these things, right? So you break this into two parts. You have your non-REM sleep and your REM sleep, right? And REM sleep just stands for rapid eye movement. Your body is paralyzed besides your breathing muscles and your eyes, and they're literally going back and forth horizontally when you're in this stage of sleep. So you like to think of it as like your REM sleep is responsible for more the mental aspect of sleep, kind of resetting your mind, your mood stability, motivation, the things that are kind of intangible. And then the non-REM sleep is more associated with your physical regeneration. So like you have a hard workout, your muscles break down, tendons, all that stuff. That's when you have the most impactful physical regeneration sleep, right? So you have the three stages of non-REM sleep. And when you're on like a Whoop or something, you see that slow wave sleep. That's your deep sleep. Usually that's what people are talking about. And that's the deepest non-REM stage of sleep, which is the most impactful for physical recovery. So when you think about those things, you know, the lighter stages, like the first two stages of non-REM, that takes up about half your night's sleep, the combination of those. And then a quarter is that deep sleep, that slow wave sleep, and then a quarter is your REM sleep. And it's more about having those proportions, right? Those equal proportions, not equal, but the right proportions based on what your body needs, as opposed to shooting for more of one. And I always compare this to like a band. And people think that, oh, I just want to get a ton of REM sleep. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's actually a lot of like psychological disorders that a symptom is, a massive amount of REM sleep. So it's more about those proportions and the flow and your body's ability to get through these different stages of sleep. Like I said, compare it to a band. Like in a band, you have your drums, your guitar, you have your vocalist, whatever it may be. And it's more about how those instruments play together. And that's similar to sleep cycles. You can't make up for the guitar with more drums. Like that doesn't work, right? And you can't make up for drums with more guitar. It's similar to like REM cycles and your deep sleep. Like you need the proportions of all those because they all play different roles in the body.
Is there a specific order of events in which these cycles take place, or can it vary by person, right? Can one person perhaps hit their REM sleep in a different area, maybe a little earlier, maybe someone's more of a morning REM? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so everyone, that's the thing too, is everybody is slightly different. Even, male or female, our sleep cycles vary slightly. So I think it's important not to get caught in the weeds. And when you look at these wearables, for the most part, like paying attention to your sleep cycles, I would say isn't really helpful. You're probably doing more damage than good, because even on all the wearables, the best wearables are like 70% effective in measuring these sleep cycles, right? It's very difficult to measure a sleep cycle based on a wearable on your wrist, right? You really need to measure brain waves. So when people think about this stuff, it's like when you're deep diving into the wearables and different sleep cycles and really worrying about that, there's probably a lot bigger things to worry about and things to focus on, as opposed to 10% here or there of slow wave sleep, which could easily just be an error in the calculations. And I think right now it's amazing, like the shift, the focus on sleep, people are really into it. But on the flip side, people are becoming almost obsessed with it, so much that it's taking away or hindering their sleep,
and so creating additional stress.
Yeah, it's there's actually a word for it. It's like a orthosomniac, which is the obsession with getting perfect sleep. And it's becoming more and more of a thing, similar to like a orthopedic surgeon. You're trying to fix things, but you're so obsessed with fixing your sleep that it actually takes away from it. The more you actually think about your sleep, the worse it usually gets.
Right.
So.
I always like to say, I think almost every conversation that we've had on this podcast, wearables has come up, and I think we can all ultimately agree that they are a great baseline. They're not the end all be all, and they also, there's not a device out there that can provide us with the same amount of data that, say, a sleep study could, right?
No.
So I hear you talk a lot about sleep studies. Talk about what happens in a sleep study. How can almost every person benefit from going to at least one sleep study just to understand it? And what are the benefits of the data that you're learning?
Yeah, so the cool thing with sleep studies now is the technology has advanced where you can do them at home in a comfortable environment. 'Cause, that's a huge component of, I think, what they used to do. They used to bring people into a bedroom and a laboratory for a night or two, but your sleep is immensely impacted by a new environment. Just the first night in a hotel room, for example, like that's gonna change your sleep and the architecture of your sleep cycles just being in a new place. So now you can do them at home, and the biggest thing is just making sure there's not any issues, making sure from a breathing perspective and a disturbances perspective that everything is functioning normally. You're flowing through those sleep cycles, and there's not any snoring or apneas or anything like that, because sleep apnea is something you don't want to play around with. It's something that is almost guaranteed to have long-term negative health outcomes, like neurodegenerative diseases, which is horrible to watch somebody go through, and I think everybody is striving in the longevity world to stay away from that. So it's just similar to blood work, where it's like, get a baseline, see where you're at, because my own personal experience, I had no idea I had anything going on. And so when we launched the mouth tape, when we launched Dream Recovery and we came with the mouth tape, when I started mouth taping about 3 years ago, I felt so much better when I started doing it. And, reading James Nestor's book and, a lot of these different books and studies and the stuff, it makes sense. Obviously, nasal breathing is extremely powerful, but I was very curious, like, one, exactly what's going on, like, why do I feel so much better? And I wanted to get some hard data on the mouth tape, because there's not a lot of studies focusing on what we're trying to do, which is optimize, not necessarily like take someone with a clinical issue and fix it. We're just trying to make someone that's relatively healthy and trying to do big things perform at an even higher level. And usually that's not where funding for studies go. And so I did this sleep study, and I've slept well my whole life, never had a problem. I would consider myself a very good sleeper. I don't snore, any of this stuff, and yet the mouth tape seemed to make a massive impact. and this is before even I dealt with mouth tape on the business side. So, completely self-serving. And so I did this sleep study. I did one without the tape and one with the tape. When I did it with the tape, I stopped breathing 86 times throughout the night. I was diagnosed with moderate sleep apnea. The doctor would have recommended a CPAP, like the whole deal. And it was shocking to me because I thought I felt pretty good, right? But you only have your own perspective with sleep. That's the thing, is like when you're awake and you're conscious and you make a big change in your life, you're able to feel the difference. With sleep, you've only slept as yourself. And it's very rare that we get the opportunity to make a big difference and actually feel that difference. It's usually very gradual over time, for better or for worse. So then I did a second sleep study with the tape, and I only had 8 disturbances the entire night.
Wow.
Completely fixed my issues. The doctor said it looked a million times better. My slow wave sleep was up 25%. My REM sleep was up 25%, and it looked like a different person just from that reminder on my mouth, just to keep my mouth shut, basically.
I love that mouth taping has become a verb. People are asking
I
other
know.
people, hey, do you mouth tape? Tell us, let's dive into that a little bit more, and tell us about your specific product that you have at Dream Recovery, and why that is an elevated product in comparison to maybe what we've seen over the last several years as it's had its rise to fame. Yeah,
it's interesting. Like, we've even seen our mouth tape in dating profiles on some apps. So,
that's awesome. So
definitely, and we have a girl that has had success with that, where it really brings people in. It's very interesting, and it seems it's kind of like the CrossFit vibe in the beginning. When people do CrossFit, they like to talk about it. I think mouth taping, it comes up quite a bit.
I think CrossFit, being vegan, doing ice baths and sauna, right? It's kind of falling in that same category.
That one kind of makes me sad because I'm such a hardcore ice bath sauna person.
I'm with you.
And everyone's like, I was ahead of the times, but I've been on a sauna, not as much as the ice bath, but the sauna for probably a decade, which makes me sad now because it's like such a thing.
I'm with you.
So it's mixed feelings there, but it's good people are doing it. But it's kind of been a movement, and I think it is about people feeling better. I think people talk about it because it is so impactful, and that's the experience I had, to the point where I wanted to make my own, which is pretty impactful. But so I actually started mouth taping like 3 years ago, and I always tell this, like, Katie came home. The first night I did it, Katie came home from a trip. It was midnight when she got home. Didn't tell her I was doing it. Walk in, tape on my mouth, and she was totally freaked out. She's like, "Is someone holding you hostage in the closet? Like, what is happening?" And this was before, like, no one even knew what it was. Definitely was not a verb at the time. But like I said, I felt significantly better. Went through this journey. I mean, I've ordered every single type out there, everything on Amazon, all of them, and there wasn't like an awesome option. I never felt like it was comfortable. And then Amazon ended up banning mouth tape because people were using these like really sketchy adhesives. And so I just felt like, two things. One, we wanted to create a brand that really focused on quality, and beyond that, allowed people to feel okay about taking care of themselves. Like, if you're going to be a high achiever and you're going to bust your ass in business, fitness, bodybuilding, whatever it may be, a brand that basically says, hey, look, in order to achieve the highest goals and function at the optimal level, you have to take sleep seriously, and that's okay. Like, you're not lazy. This rise and grind mentality is done, and that's kind of like what we're setting out to do. It's more of a mission of like making that normal as opposed to products.
No one deserves to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Dream Recovery helps you get the best sleep possible. Try Dream Tape for less than $1 a day, made with medical-grade hyperallergenic adhesive for a gentle yet snug fit. Embrace mouth taping as a part of your nightly routine to experience uninterrupted deep sleep, which is essential for recovery of the body and mind. Thank them later for kicking your lifetime snoring habit. The Dream Recovery Sleep Mask allows you to stay in the deeper stages of sleep for longer periods of time so that you can wake up in a great mood, feeling rested and recharged. The Performance Pillowcase is made with the science-backed silver ions along with the highest grade silk on the planet. It's made to keep you cooler, help fight inflammation, prevent bacterial invasion, and maintain nighttime moisturizers applied before bed. Stop waking up tired and start waking up energized. Shop now at dreamrecovery.io. Use code BBPOD for 30% off your entire order and 50% off your first month of Dream Tape mouth tape. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. From a physiological perspective, what is the benefit of nasal breathing over mouth breathing?
Yeah, the biggest thing is really, the psychological component and the connection to our nervous system. Breathing almost immediately impacts our nervous system. And it allows us to, put ourselves in the correct nervous system in order to rest and go to sleep, right? We're usually pretty stressed out throughout the day, and I think that's a pretty common misconception. People think that life is this binary thing where we're awake and we're asleep. And the more and more we learn, the more and more we're finding out that it's very difficult to have high stress levels throughout the entire day and then all of a sudden shut it off and fall asleep and sleep soundly. And the more stress you have throughout the day, the more it impacts your sleep, even if you fall asleep fine. Like if you're able to fall asleep and you think it can turn it off, the more and more we're finding is like our physiology is showing that it's impacting that night's sleep, right? So I think stress management is the biggest thing, and allowing yourself and teaching yourself, training yourself to kind of reset your nervous system and put yourself in a mental state to be able to rest, relax, and be as efficient as you can when you're sleeping. That's really what it's about, is washing away all the stresses in your body. And when you're not breathing efficiently and you're not in the right nervous system state, that really is like a low level chronic stress, and you're trying to alleviate that. And then beyond that, you have, it warms the air, it filters the air, and it basically allows you to uptake the most amount of oxygen with the least amount of volume, right? Like we need to breathe through our mouth when you need massive amounts of oxygen just because it's a lot of volume, but our nose allows us to be more efficient, which is really the goal when you're asleep. Efficiency is pretty much the name of the game.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, the nose was designed for air and the mouth was designed for
exactly.
food, right?
That's the best quote there is.
And I think for a very long time we've heard almost an insult, right? You're such a mouth breather. And now people are hearing these conversations and they're sitting there with their mouth open and they kind of pick their jaw up and they're like, oh my gosh, I am. But also I think these conversations are important to educate them. Well, it goes well beyond just, maybe this unattractiveness or maybe this, louder breathing. This is actually comes down to a physiological, guarantee that you can be healthier by predominantly breathing through the nose.
Definitely. And we think around 60% of the population breathes through their mouth, especially at night, which is that's a big stat. And, it's also amazing. Like it's more of a reminder, even when you use a small piece of tape, which we're coming out with a very little small piece of tape because it freaks people out.
Baby steps.
Yeah. And it is more of a psychological reminder, and you can train yourself to become a nasal breather. A lot of times, similar with sleep in general or anything like nutrition, awareness, bringing awareness to something often brings change. And I think sometimes the tape is just there for awareness. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, even it's just like anything else, right? Start with a couple minutes a day. Just sit there and do some meditation. Go, right through the nose. For me, I've had a deviated septum for the longest time. So, for me, it's been a big struggle. And I really had to train myself to predominantly be a nasal breather, which sounds silly, but it takes work.
But people don't realize, too, when they don't do it, it's just accelerating that congestion, and you're just like feeding the issue.
Right. And it can lead to a multitude of different issues as well. Bad breath. It can impact dental hygiene. It can impact a lot of other things that are going on.
So the dental hygiene portion, I was a little unaware of, honestly, when we set on this journey, because that just wasn't what I focused on. I probably should have. My aunt is a dental hygienist, and she went to a conference, and shortly after we launched it, she sent me all this stuff, and dentists are just raving about it, just because when your mouth is open, the pH in your mouth drops significantly. The rule of thumb, a dentist will usually say under 5.5 pH, your teeth start to deteriorate at a pretty rapid rate at night. And when your mouth is open, it's around 3.5, so significantly lower, like about 20% more acidic when your mouth is open. So when you think about dental hygiene, and I actually, as a kid, and my mom is the same way, like I was psychotic about brushing my teeth because I didn't want cavities. The dentist is the worst, right? So I would brush my teeth like 3 times a day, do all this stuff, and I would still get cavities like every single time. Well, now looking back, that's probably exactly what was happening. I was just breathing through my mouth the entire time. Right. Super acidic, and it's just easy to break down your teeth when you're in that state. Yeah,
wild stuff. I want to circle back just very quickly to the benefits of sleep, and I want to break it down into 2 parts, which you did at the beginning. I want to talk about, the mental recovery aspect and then more of the muscle and tissue recovery. But let's start with the mental and the impact that sleep can have on memory, fatigue, metabolism, things of that nature. Even some of the studies that we're seeing linked to some of these neurological diseases as well. So talk a little bit about brain health and sleep.
Yeah, I think like when I think of brain health, I quickly jump to neurodegenerative diseases, because that's just like a long-term outcome that seems to be a pretty good predictor of our chronic brain health over the span of our life. And the positives on some of this research coming out is a lot of it is environment and behavior based. When you look at sleep, when you start getting under that 6-hour mark, it just seems like the percentages of all those diseases we're trying to avoid jump up dramatically. And the mechanism specifically in like the slow wave deep sleep in relation to the brain, just in 2019 we were able to fully understand why it was so important. In 2019 they did the first live MRI, I believe it was 2019, but they were able to actually look at the fluid movement within the brain. And what they saw was in that slow wave sleep, this cerebral spinal fluid, which is not blood, it's just fluid in the brain, actually pumps. Like you can see it almost like a heartbeat, and it's pumping this fluid through the brain, and it's washing away all those those cellular byproducts, those toxins that are produced throughout the day, like the beta amyloids and the tau proteins, which cause, tau causes CTE, beta amyloids cause Alzheimer's and dementia. So that's pretty much like that slow wave sleep is like our cleaning mechanism. It's like our washer for our brain. And so that's also the stage of sleep that seems to have the first issue. When someone starts having sleep issues and you look at their sleep cycles, that's usually the cycle that really drops the quickest, and it seems like it's the most impacted right away. And it makes sense, if somebody's having sleep issues chronically throughout their life, those diseases catch up. The problem is once you start having symptoms, they're usually a lot later in life, and it's really hard to make changes in reverse. But even saying that, 2 weeks ago there were some studies talking about just some of the symptoms of all of these like neurodegenerative stuff being reversed, and sleep was one of the tools they were using to start to do that. It's I think we're just hitting the tip of the iceberg right now. Yeah, and as we both said in the beginning of the episode, it's inherently becoming a more and more important conversation, especially in the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. When we look at, I've said this before too to our listeners as well, when we look at wellness, we really look at nutrition, movement, stress management, and then sleep, your core 4 pillars, to longevity. Yeah. When it comes to working out, whether that's running, whether that's weightlifting, we all know we're ripping muscle fibers apart, and that's going to take a certain level of recovery. Sure, you have your sauna, your cold bath, your compression boots, whatever other modality you want to throw in there, but sleep is the #1 recovery tool that you could possibly have, and it is the cheapest as well, I'll say. Yeah. So let's talk about, from a physical perspective, what sleep does on the body. Yeah, I think that, I think sleep, the way I actually look at sleep, obviously you recover a lot from that stuff, but it's really more of like a preparation. It gives you the ability to produce a massive amount of effort the next day. And when you look at people's goals, like whether it be weight loss, muscle gain, any type of fitness, cardiovascular goals, setting that foundation and looking at like the sleep is the first portion of your day allows you to push yourself to that level. But that being said, like all those things you talked about, like those ancillary recovery tools, like, compression boots and cold therapy, hot therapy, that's like sprinkles on top of the ice cream cone, and there's no way to overcome sleep. But I think that the problem is when a lot of people set these goals, the first thing everybody wants to do is like, I'm going to wake up early and work out. And I think when you look at the percent of people who fail in trying to accomplish these goals, the conversation should really be, how do we make the percent that you're going to achieve these goals go up just by your schedule and the behaviors you choose to prioritize? In sleep makes the chances of you achieving those goals go up immensely. When you look at across the board, like we make better nutritional choices, we're more motivated to work out, we're less likely to drink alcohol. Like there's so many things that just fall in line, and you build such momentum when you start with prioritizing sleep as opposed to fighting your physiology. You get up early at 5 a.m. to work out, like that might be sustainable for a couple months, right? Because you're motivated and you're trying to achieve something, but you can only fight your physiology for so long. And even if you keep that up when you're chronically underslept, like those symptoms, it's going to show up somewhere else in your life. It could be, from a psychological side, like it could deteriorate relationships, your mental health. It could be something physical, you're not recovering in joints, tendons, muscles, whatever it may be. You're not going to know where it's going to show up, but promise your body is going to make up for it. It's going to find a way to show you that you're underslept. Right. The 5 a.m. club, unless you're going to bed at 8 o'clock the night before, which if you are, I salute you for sure. But, I think I said this on our last episode with Kira Stokes. I think the glorification of the 5 a.m. club has really kind of dwindled in the last couple of years, which I personally love to see, because
Now, schedule is going to dictate everybody, right? Unfortunately, some people, that's the only time of the day. And I mean, if you're training for something, you got to get it done, right? But if you're choosing between sleep and that workout, I mean, sleep's going to come with a lot of benefits. And even if that means maybe I can get 30 minutes in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon that day versus maybe the 90 minutes I wanted to get in at 7 a.m., it's the data is showing a lot to side with sleep.
Yeah, it's very rare, when I have a conversation with someone, even though they have an insane schedule. And like I said, this stuff is not easy. Prioritizing sleep is not just like, boom, I'm going to prioritize sleep. Like life is wild. I don't have kids yet, so I can't even fully speak to that. But I can only imagine. But I think it's more about like the prioritization, because I think when you break down someone's schedule, and you start with the priorities, usually people have, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here and there, and you can piece together a workout somewhere, some way. And you can also find a way to carve things out and make sleep important. I think that's what it's about. Really, right now, I would say 90% of people, they're like, okay, these are all the things, I make a list. These are the things I need to do throughout my day, and sleep gets the leftover. Yeah. As opposed to, all right, like this is a non-negotiable. I know this is going to create the best version of myself. Let's start with that. And then let's work backwards. And I think that shift, once people really buy into it, because when it comes down to it, right, people have heard about sleep. It's not like no one's talking about it. So it's really that true buy-in that it's going to make that big of a difference. It's not about the information or the knowledge at this point for most people. It's about truly buying in. And I think the only way to do that is to actually experience the change. But like I said, if you're not sure if you're sleeping well or you're having a hard time sleeping, you're never going to buy in because it's not really impacting you the way it should.
Right. I think especially with New Year coming up, everybody loves to throw out goals, some smaller, some a little loftier. Yeah. And how many of those goals are going to be do a marathon or start going to the gym, right? Yeah. Either just step.
Do you have a New Year's goal?
Me? I mean, stress management for me is probably my number one, to be honest with you. I think we're going to see a lot of audacious goals when it comes to physically what we want to achieve with our body, but how many people, to your point, are going to have sleep as part of their New Year's resolution?
Hopefully a lot.
But
I think I bet this year though more than any year before it will be.
I completely agree with that.
Which is a great thing.
And like you said, discipline's a big part of it. Mindset shifting is a big part of it. And then it also comes to what does our wind down routine look like, right? So we briefly talked about the 3-2-1 rule. It's something I really try to abide to almost every night. 3 hours before, let's stop eating to allow for optimal digestion before you hit the bed. 2 hours before, let's stop drinking liquids so you're not running to the bathroom in the middle of your sleep too many times. And then 1 hour before, let's cut off devices. Let's stop the screens. Let's not watch TV. Let's not be on social media. Let's disconnect, from the entire digital world and just allow our brains to relax. So I would love to hear your take on it, what you're doing and what works for you.
Yeah, I love the 3-2-1 rule. I think it really does embody the perfect nighttime routine. I think that, we can kind of go through each one. I think that the food one, I think people don't realize how impactful that is. That first REM cycle of the night, that first sleep cycle of the night, you have your biggest spike in growth hormone of the entire day. And it's kind of like if you don't lose it, you lose it type of situation where like if you don't give yourself a gap of eating, right? If you don't cut that eating off about 3 hours before bedtime, you lose that growth hormone spike. Your body won't create the spike in growth hormone because it's busy metabolizing this food, and you don't get that for that day. You lose out on it. So I think people don't realize that, and they also don't realize how much better they feel in the morning. People have tons of digestive issues, and just allowing your body some time is, for me, I feel substantially better. And then the hydration, I would say, is probably the most messed up one. People, everyone tries to catch up on their hydration later in the day because they forget about it, which is like the worst thing you can do, especially for athletes. We really struggle with this. Same with the food. I think for athletes, when we deal with athletes, it's hard because even if someone's trying to like put on mass, it's hard because there's a balance of like calories. Obviously, calories are very, very important, and that is a hard decision. Like if you're going to make the choice between giving yourself a gap before you go to bed to digest and just being under your energy balance needs, that's tough. If you're a performance athlete, you probably need the calories, in which we tend to recommend like low glycemic foods. It seems if you can go over a high protein source, low glycemic impact, it doesn't have as much of an impact on that growth hormone spike, but that's a tough balance. But hydration, front loading your hydration throughout the day can make insane differences. I was talking about odds, right? We were talking about odds earlier. Maybe that's the sports betting side of me, but I think you got to think about it like, and it's similar to sleeping with a partner. You have to think about, okay, everybody has their stresses, and sometimes your brain gets fixated on a thought, right, in the middle of the night, and a lot of people have a hard time going back to bed for that very reason. And the more times that you wake up in the middle of the night, the higher probability that you're going to start thinking about something that's going to have ruminating thoughts and going to cause you stress. So you want to give your brain the least amount of opportunities to think about something that's going to stress you out. And
to flip back on.
Exactly. And hydration is a great way to either make yourself get up a million times or, sleep soundly throughout the night. And so I think front loading your hydration like first, half of the day can make a huge impact, and then not gulping water down right before bed. Over 4 or 5 ounces triggers us to have to go pee more often. So that can be a really useful tool. And a lot of these sleep supplements, they're mixed with water, and people are chugging down 12 ounces of water with these sleep supplements, and you're going to probably wake up 2 more times because of the amount of water you drank and then the amount at one time you drank.
Right.
So.
And what about that 1 hour turning off devices?
This one's hard for me too. I think that the world we live in, it's a connected world, and there's stuff going on, and you never know when something's going to happen. So I think this one is, I almost think about it as like limiting the damage. I'm probably going to be watching some screens, and actually I don't fully abide by this. I actually have a TV in my bedroom, and I've talked about this, but me and Katie watch a show every single night, and we have for the last decade, and that time is really valuable to me. I really enjoy kind of downloading on the day, and just like it's special, and it's not worth it to me. Like that's something that's more important to me than the optimization of my sleep. There's things I can do to combat that, and I think that's something to keep in mind too. When we talk about all this optimization stuff, longevity specifically, there's so many things you can do to optimize your life, but the most important thing you can do is have deep, meaningful relationships, and you can't lose sight of that, because it's fun to go down this path of making everything perfect and feeling amazing, but you'll never feel amazing in the long term if you don't care about people and you're not around people that care about you. And as soon as all this stuff becomes the main focus, people are going to stop caring about you because you're not going to care about them.
No,
you're not going to do anything.
It's true. And I love that. It's a really great point. I mean, the emotional benefit that you get out of that hour with your wife before bed, and that involves a screen. Great. If you find yourself doom scrolling, wishing that you were on the vacation that you're seeing someone else on, is that the best spot to put yourself in before bed? Probably not, right?
Yeah.
So there's different cases.
Definitely. I think it's about weighing the priorities, and then, like I said, limiting the damage. So I'll wear, blue light blocking glasses to limit the screen damage. And the other thing people can do is create a continuum from their living space to their bedroom at night. A lot of people have all the lights on, screens on, everything's loud in their living room, and then, okay, let's go to bed, and then they just think their brain's going to transition like that. Even dimming the lights down, pretty significantly throughout the night, where after dinner there's no bright lights, that can make a big difference. And people don't realize, like, it's not about just not exposing yourself to a screen, it's about the length of time. Like 2 hours is way more impactful than 1 hour when it comes to screen usage.
Absolutely. I mean, 7 o'clock in our house, we're lighting some candles. We're turning
love
down
candles.
the overhead. Like, we are setting the scene for just a really relaxing night.
I'm a big candle guy. I'm even on like a candle of the month, like delivery service.
Are you? I'm going to have to grab that from you after.
Definitely.
Todd, let's move into a couple of things that can negatively impact sleep. So there are a couple of things here, and there are a lot of great things that people have written in about the impact that they can have. Number one, I want to start with caffeine. This is a big one. And, there are some people out there who may be better off not having caffeine in their diet, but there's also a bit of a general rule of cutting off caffeine, at a certain time of day. So I want to talk about, one, the impact caffeine can have on your sleep if you're having it, closer to bedtime. And then two, how to really understand, what that sweet spot is for you.
Yeah, caffeine is tough because, there are a lot of positive studies about caffeine. There's a lot of positive performance studies. There's cognitive studies. There's long-term, brain health studies, all positive stuff for the most part. But when it comes to sleep, it can have a big impact, as we know. And I think that just being intentional with caffeine is the biggest thing. So the first thing is with caffeine is I like to treat it like a play action pass in football, which obviously I play football, so I relate everything to that. But, a play action pass, like if you run a play action pass every play, it's not going to work, right? You have to mix it in. Like you can only run it every so often, and it works really well because you take you kind of catch the defense off guard. Well, caffeine's the same way. Like if you don't use it for a couple days and you have a big workout, big event, a big meeting, a big presentation, and then you use it, it's really impactful. It works really well. When you use it every single day, the exact same dose over and over and over again, I mean, even after a couple of weeks, you're not going to feel that, right? So I recommend people just to save it for when you need it, and it'll have a much larger impact, and you're probably going to enjoy it more because it works. And it's like anything, if you do it too much, it's just going to become routine, and it's just like habitual at that point.
Right. And how does that consumption timing impact sleep as well?
Yeah, so the half-life of caffeine is pretty long. It's between 5 and 6 hours. Everybody is different. Some people are extremely different or extremely sensitive to caffeine. There's genetic tests, and you can actually see if you're one of those people. But, for the most part, the earlier you can have caffeine, the better, right? Because it tapers off over a long, long period. And when you have multiple doses, they stack on each other, right? We metabolize it relatively slow. So even 200 milligrams of caffeine in a day, which is a pretty average amount, if you have 100 at 8 a.m. and then 100 at noon, that's going to linger in your system much, much longer because your body's not able to metabolize it up front, kind of stacks it on top of each other, and then it's going to stay with you throughout the night. So, really front-loading it is the most important thing. And the other thing that makes more sense physiologically, because caffeine prevents us from feeling tired more than even gives us energy. It blocks the adenosine receptors, which basically makes us feel tired throughout the day. So when you think about when you're having it, like you want to feel tired later in the day, unless there's something specific, like unless you do have a big event competition in the afternoon, yes, you would use it then. That's a perfect way to use it because it's going to block the thing that is making you feel tired. But as far as how we usually function and the way most people's days are set up, it makes more sense to have earlier in the day and kind of prevents you from feeling tired throughout the day and tapers off through the night. Because for example, if someone has like 3 cups of coffee, 100 milligram cup of coffee, which is small. Not many people are having a 100 milligram cup of coffee. If they have it at like 8, 11, and 1 p.m., which is pretty standard. I don't think anybody would be like, oh, that's crazy. But even with that, you'll have around 80 milligrams of caffeine in your system at 11 p.m., which, a Red Bull has 80 milligrams of caffeine. So it really stays with you. So I think intentionality and making sure you need it. Experience a couple days without it and really think about, do I feel a difference? Because oftentimes, too, people have large doses of caffeine. They feel more anxiety. They feel more edgy. They feel like they're more irritable. And some people feel significantly better. It's just been years since they've actually tried it.
Right. And what impact could this potentially then have on those cycles that we discussed earlier on in the episode?
Yeah, so usually people can't get into that slow wave sleep as quickly. It tends to just float around in those first 2 stages of sleep back and forth, and it pushes you, closer to those REM cycles, or pushes you further in the night to the slow wave sleep and REM cycles. And the problem with that is what happens is you kind of similar to the growth hormone spike, you kind of just lose out on those sleep cycles because your body's sleep cycles stays consistent to the circadian rhythm, meaning you have more REM cycles later in the night towards the morning, and you have more slow wave cycles, that deep sleep, earlier in the night. So if you're missing out on those deep sleep cycles because you had caffeine, you kind of just skip out on those because your brain will tend to jump into those REM cycles later in the night and skip out on the previous sleep it had. It's kind of like when you stay up too late. You don't start at stage 1. You kind of jump into whatever sleep cycles you tend to normally get at that time of night, right? So you can't really go. There's nothing more important of all this stuff, all the sleep stuff. Consistency in your bedtime and wake time is by far the most impactful thing you can do, more than any of these other things 5 times.
I was just going to say, your brain probably has a tendency, it has a sweet spot of where it wants to be between, let's say, 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. or 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. if you're sleeping that late.
Definitely.
That being said, if I usually go to bed at 10 and then I went to bed at midnight, but I still have to get up at that 7 o'clock slot,
yeah,
like you said, we're missing out on key areas of the sleep cycle.
Yeah, and people think that okay, let's say, you normally go to bed at 10 and wake up at 5, so you're getting 7 hours. And you stay up late, right? So you only got 5 hours of sleep. And then the next night, you went to bed at 10 but woke up at 3, and you're still getting 5 hours of sleep. That really is not the same thing, because in the night that you went to bed late, you're going to have significantly more REM cycles because that's the normal time your brain gets those REM cycles in. And then when you woke up early, you're going to get more of the non-REM sleep, which impacts the body differently as well. So it's more, like I said, there's no way to hack the consistency. Like you can't shift it one way or the other because your body stays consistent to that circadian rhythm, and it takes a long time to change your circadian rhythm.
Right. I hear that all the time too. They're like, I don't understand. I still got my 7 in. I'm like, well, what time did you go to bed? They're like, well, 1. I'm like, what time do you usually go to bed? I usually get in bed by 9:30 and I'm asleep by 10. Well, that's why you felt terrible this morning, right?
And it seems like the more and more studies that come out, the hours of sleep before midnight are especially impactful.
I just read that as well.
And it's weird though, because the thing with it, even like with nutritional choices and craving and poor foods and things like that, but the only thing I can say is I wonder if it's, someone that's sleeping 1 to 9 as opposed to someone that's sleeping, 9 to 5, that's probably going to be a different type of lifestyle. So I'm just curious, is it, correlation or causation? But it seems to be pretty consistent because every single study that comes out with different populations seems to be pointing to the fact that before midnight sleep is especially impactful.
Yep. Alcohol. This is probably the one we get asked about the most. It's a highly controversial thing right now. We're actually seeing the lowest amount of alcohol consumption in younger ages than we ever have before. Let's talk about how it impacts sleep.
I believe that. I mean, we're coming out with a pretty cool product in this realm. I can't really say much, but it's gonna be sweet. I'm very excited about it.
Very cool. Let's talk about. I think people are always like, I felt like I slept all 8 hours after a night of drinking, but I still feel hungover. I still feel exhausted. Now you and I kind of understand what's happening, right? But let's break down what actually, how that's actually impacting the body.
Yeah, and it makes sense that you get the illusion that you sleep well because. But there's a difference between being sedated and sleeping because alcohol sedates you, right? And it does make you fall asleep faster, similar with THC. It makes you fall asleep faster. And what it does is it just prevents your brain from getting into those REM cycles. So you float around in these lighter stages of sleep, and it takes about 4 or 5 hours for your body to metabolize the alcohol. And then once it does, your brain is like, I have had no REM sleep this first half of the night or first 5 hours of the night. I need to make up for it. And you go into these really deep, intense, long REM cycles. And so when you wake up, you feel like you're coming out of a coma because essentially you were because you deprived your brain of this REM sleep the entire night. And so it feels like it gives the illusion that, 1, I fell asleep really fast. And 2, when I woke up, I was in a deep, deep sleep. So it must be a net positive for my sleep. When in fact that's not at all what's happening. It's actually the opposite.
Can the same argument be made about drinking earlier in the day? So is going to brunch better than going to cocktails, right?
Yeah, so I think the brunch mimosas is definitely a better option. The problem is most people have a couple of mimosas and then that just kind of
dominoes.
Yeah, it just falls into let's go to the next place and the next place. But yeah, like I always recommend, like let's say you're gonna have 2 glasses of wine, no matter what. Let's say, even if, some people have 2 glasses of wine every night. We'll take this as a case study. If you just had those glasses of wine when you were making dinner as opposed to after dinner, that's going to result in hours and hours and hours of more REM sleep throughout the year, right? So that subtle change where you're not eliminating anything, but you're just allowing your body to process the alcohol is a substantial impact. And I think that's the changes people need to make. It's not like, I understand, like there's been times in my life, everybody has their ups and downs. There's been times where I was having a significant amount of drinks almost every single night, probably 7 years ago. And it would be nearly impossible to change that right away. But I think like those minor shifts build momentum. You shift it forward, you're having the same experience, probably a better experience, and then you're able to sleep better. And all of a sudden you start feeling better and you probably will crave that alcohol less or be more willing to cut it down to 1 glass, or you don't have to eliminate it. There are ways to do it that are less impactful. Alcohol is not a good thing, but I get people enjoy it. I'll have drinks every once in a while, but I think again, like being intentional with all this stuff is the most important. I think people just rip it and they don't think about it until they realize it's going to have an impact. And if there's one thing you don't want to impact, it's your sleep. Having alcohol early in the day, does it affect other things in our body? Yes, it affects, hormone levels, protein synthesis, all these different things. But I'll take that over impacting my sleep any day of the week.
All right, disclaimer, we're not saying to rip shots on your 11 a.m. conference call. But
I mean, sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get there, I guess.
Something that almost goes hand in hand is sugar, right? There's sugar, obviously, in alcohol, especially some alcohol over others. Your nightly wine drinkers, I think that's a big factor that they don't really take into account. So, we're in a sugar epidemic. It's a huge conversation. Talk about, ideally we go as low as sugar as possible in terms of our daily diet. As you've said, that may not be an easy adjustment for a lot of people. But what is sugar's impact on sleep?
Yeah, so this year they just released a study that showed that unhealthy fats and sugar intake actually impacts the architecture of your sleep. So like I was talking, it seems like everything, I say this for every negative thing, but you tend to get less of the deep sleep cycles that your brain is essentially pumping these fluids and clearing it out of the byproducts when you eat a poor diet, when you eat a high fat, high sodium diet, and it also accelerates your cravings. Like you tend to crave those things even more and more. So it really is just a poor quality, less efficient night's sleep. And then the other thing is that growth hormone spike. So that growth hormone spike in that first sleep cycle is extremely sensitive to blood sugar. So when your blood sugar spikes high, that growth hormone spike seems not to happen as often, or not as prevalent. So I think keeping your blood sugar low, especially leading up to bed, can be a really impactful thing.
Speaking of blood sugar, right? I think an equally as popular conversation right now is fasting, and we've talked about it on here. When you wake up in the morning and you have a lower level than you did when you went to sleep, obviously, because a lot just happened over the last 7 or 8 hours, right? How should we be thinking about coming out of sleep? I think that's a conversation that we don't talk about enough as well. How do we want to get our body going, coming out of these cycles?
Well, I think along those same lines, nothing to do with like the fast, but even the psychological state. I think an alarm, like the actual alarm you have, can put your body in a stress state, which is going to impact the fuel consumption and the way your body is metabolizing foods. But having a subtle alarm or even like a vibration, like the Whoop alarm is actually great.
I was just going to say it's been one of my favorite details.
It's great
of it.
For multiple reasons. But having like a subtle vibrating alarm, my bed actually creates these like tiny waves through it. It has these air chambers in it, and it gradually builds up to my alarm. But we have enough stress in our life, and the worst thing you can do is put yourself under this, especially like technology created stress first thing in the morning. So I think that's one thing. Yeah. So with the vibrating alarm, like the other nice thing too is if you sleep with a partner, it doesn't disturb them, right? And that's when you talk about not giving your brain opportunities to think about something that's stressful in the middle of the night. Sleeping with a partner is also something you need to be intentional on. And a memory foam mattress is an amazing investment, because when that person moves, if you don't have a memory foam mattress, like you're going to wake up. And so now you're waking up twice as often, right? And then their hydration is affecting your sleep. So now you have two people's hydration to monitor. Whereas if you have and now there's pretty affordable mattress options that are memory foam, which is awesome. But even the vibrating alarm in the morning, it doesn't wake up your partner. Maybe they get to sleep in a little later than you, whatever it may be. But it's just a much more peaceful way to kind of start the day off, not spike your cortisone and cortisol, and just kind of set your mindset for the day. I think that like that old Apple alarm that's like super aggressive is just the worst.
Right.
It's
or
like
maybe
PTSD.
Yeah, maybe your favorite song from 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was
maybe
actually,
it's time to change
that would instantly ruin any song back in the day.
It did. It's so true. It would be
There's
ruined.
Still a Wale song that I had for my alarm, and I can't stand it to this day.
I'm the same way. I think I had like an OAR song back in college, and it's triggering.
But you'd always
to this
pick your
day.
favorite song.
Right, but now it's the complete
Done.
opposite. It's
It's
triggering
It's
now.
horrible. Yep.
You brought up a really great point. We hear a lot about sleep divorce, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of has a negative connotation to it. Now, here's the thing, and this is a tough one, right? Because you mentioned we want the emotional connection. It's sometimes the only time we get with our partner with how busy life can be, right? And there's tons of benefits to, that skin on skin, being close to your partner, the role that can it play on cortisol levels. On the flip side, you may be completely opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to your sleep patterns.
Yeah.
Someone can be a extremely deep sleeper. Somebody can be extremely light. Any sort of movement, maybe someone moves a lot and the other person's often woken up by that. So I mean, how do we combat this? What's the solution?
It's tough. I mean, I tend to lean towards the relationship side of things. I think, I mean, it in our culture and society, it's really hard to separate like sleeping together from just this like analytical, logical choice. And like you said, I mean, you know, skin-on-skin contact has amazing effect on our hormone levels and stress. And I feel like I feel that I sleep better when Katie's home. And so I think it's hard. Like if it was just purely like you recognize, look, like this is an important part of our life, like spending that time. We have different sleep schedules, and you did that from a perspective of logic, I think it can be okay. But the other thing is, I think there's like so many steps you could take before you get to that point. Like I'd have a hard time that people would do, you know, these 10 different things to try to correct the problem before they had to do that. I think people kind of jump to that because they're at their wits' end or whatever it may
so
be.
sleep deprived.
Right. And I get why they do it, but I think that like whatever's causing it could probably be addressed, and they just don't want to address it. A lot of times it's snoring, right? And you know, the mouth tape is an amazing way to stop snoring. It almost works instantly, but like also snoring is not something to ignore. Like that is a breathing disturbance. Like you should not just be snoring to the point where your partner is waking up. Like that's not something to ignore. Like you should definitely get that looked at. And I think that's the problem I have with it. Most people are just like throwing a Band-Aid on an issue and not addressing it, in which you're actually doing a disservice to your partner by doing that, because like that's going to have some negative outcomes. And, you know, just sleeping in separate rooms is not going to help anything.
Right. To your point, kind of addressing, well, you know, first of all, let's figure out what the problem is. If it's a snoring, let's try to get it figured out. Yeah. If you can't take it another night, okay, let's take a pause while we get it figured out. But I mean, like you said, I mean, in our household, we've both done mouth taping immediately, as you said, that night, like problem solved, right? So there are definitely, I agree with the sentiment that there are steps to be taken.
Yeah, and you think about all the stuff we've done, the memory foam mattresses, you know, whatever, pillows, earplugs can be a great tool. Like if you do all that stuff, I'm just trying to think of some like an issue that would still arise in a relationship. I think a lot can be done, but on the flip side, some people probably have a great experience, and it's just easier for them to do that, and they're moving around. They don't want to get a new mattress, or it doesn't work well, whatever it may be. I'm not knocking it, but me personally, I would associate it with like more of a relationship problem. Right. And from a psychological perspective, I just wouldn't feel good about it.
Right. I think there's also a hybrid approach to it too, right? Maybe there are some days where your partner has to be up at 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, and you don't have to be up until 7. Okay, that's 2 or 3 days of the week. Okay, let's compromise. Definitely. Those are the 2 or 3 nights. If you're fortunate enough to have the extra space to move around and have that extra bed, they're going to go over there, or you're going to go over there, and then the other 4 nights of the week you guys are together. So I think it's like anything else. It has to be customized to your life, right?
And if you live in New York, like you don't really have a choice.
Yeah,
because you're going to be in a twin bed.
Yeah, you're going to go up to the roof. So, I think this lends well into you know, what positively impacts sleep. Now we've talked a little bit about, you know, going to bed, waking up, but we haven't really addressed the circadian rhythm, right? What is the circadian rhythm?
Yeah, so circadian rhythm is just like basically our association and our alliance with the earth in a way. It's really, you know, how our hormones and our body reacts to light, like the sun coming up and darkness, and it remains very regular to the 24-hour cycle of our day. And so it's really just our natural triggering cycles of, you know, hormone release like melatonin, and it keeps us regular throughout the night, which is interesting because when they put people in a room with like no association to the outside world, and the lights are blocked and they have no idea what time it is, our circadian rhythm is actually slightly longer than 24 hours, which is closer to the orbit or the rotation of Mars, which is like maybe we're from Mars. You never know, but it's interesting. But I think that's why it's so, like, our body is very sensitive to light, and it's hard to align or I guess make the sun a really important piece of your life, and align it, and your schedule aligns with when the sun comes up, and obviously different times of the year it changes. So I think being mindful of light and how that impacts things, and making sure you're triggering things at the right times. And melatonin specifically is, you know, triggered by darkness. So I think a lot of people are taking melatonin, which, like, they don't even realize why they're taking it or what it's doing. And a lot of times, like I was saying, just by creating a gradient from the living space to the bedroom, and having it darken over the evening, can really boost your melatonin production. Most people's body has the ability to produce plenty of melatonin to get them through a normal sleep cycle. It's just when there's a million lights on, you're going to have a tough time, or it's going to be significantly delayed.
Right. You take that melatonin, now you're still on the phone, all the lights are on, the TV's blasting, right? Well, you're not really setting yourself up in that environment.
No, and I think people they expect like a sedating result, and that's not what it is. It's a triggering hormone. So it's not about like similar to how alcohol like makes you feel sleepy. That's not what you should expect. That's why they're combining it with all these other supplements that have more of a sedating feel. Right.
You have melatonin already. It's kind of just giving that extra boost to, hey, you know, it's time to wind it down.
Anytime you know our body has a hormone cycle, it's always good if you can optimize that, you know, naturally. If your body can produce the right timing and react to light in the correct way, like that's going to be the best option.
Right. I mean, you hear it all the time before electricity existed, right? It used to be you went to bed when the sun went down and you got up when the sun rose. You rose with the sun, right?
I think people really feel like when in the winter, you know, you really feel how much it impacts you because you feel like it's like 11 o'clock at night and it's 7 p.m. and that's how you should feel.
Yeah.
So that's usually a good sign if you're able to create that synthetic darkness in your house. Like if in the winter you're significantly more sleepy, like, you know, just reflect on that feeling and understand, like, how can I create that in the summer months and dim these lights, because you'll have the same reaction. And most people do sleep better in the winter months.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the dark environment and the benefit of things like blackout shades, sleep masks, things like that, you know, and how that plays into, you know, our natural circadian rhythm.
Yeah. I mean, sleep masks I love because it's a very cheap, easy option that you can take anywhere you go, right? It's hard. Like, life is all about controlling the controllables, especially with athletes. We talk about controlling the controllables. Light can be something that was out of your control. All of a sudden, a sleep mask is a cheap option that wherever you go, you know you're going to have blackout light when you're sleeping. And, you know, my favorite part of the sleep mask, beyond just the light, is just the psychological trigger aspect. Like, putting that thing on, for our young athletes, especially like college athletes, it's crazy the impact on their sleep. Nothing to do with the actual light, everything to do with the commitment to going to bed. You know, a lot of kids and even adults are on their phone on Snapchat till 2, 3 in the morning, till they just like are so tired they fall asleep literally with their phone in their hand. Well, all of a sudden you pretty quickly create this routine of actually committing to sleep, and all of a sudden they're falling asleep in 5 minutes. So I think that's super useful, and it's an easy way to really efficiently maximize any situation. But blackout shades too. The thing with blackout shades that's really hard is, one, they're obviously expensive. Two, it's really hard to fully black out a room. You know, we have blackout shades in our room, but then, you know, our bathroom doesn't have them, and then the light kind of leaks in. So that's why I just tend to go with the sleep mask. It's just easier. It's really hard to fully black it out.
Right. You throw it in your bag when you're traveling. It doesn't matter what kind of hotel you're going to be at. It's
no
there. If you
what.
want to sleep on the plane, it's there. That's a really great one I found for overnights.
I struggle with plane sleeping.
I do too.
I'm so bad at it. I tried today. We woke up at 3:45 in the morning, and I try to like wake up the least amount. I rarely will take those flights, but there was a Katie had something, we had to do it. I try to like wake up the least amount mentally, you know, so I'm like, I'm going to fall asleep on the flight. No, didn't fall asleep for a minute.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm bummed about it.
I just got targeted by this crazy device. I mean, it's like a box, and you put it on your tray table. You put both hands in there in case you also want to be on your phone while you're in there. But I know, a whole different conversation. Is it
clear?
For sure. What?
Is it clear?
It's just a hole that you put your face in that allows you to not flop completely down onto the table.
It is pretty uncomfortable though.
It's pretty rough.
Like, I can't find a position that's comfortable, unless sometimes on the window I can like lean over, you know. But it's not good.
I'm an aisle gal because I like the freedom of getting up, but at the same time it's probably the most disturbing.
I have like pretty big shoulders. I just get hit. Like, every person just hitting me when I walk by. But I struggle. Like even the lay down bed sometimes at international flights, I still can't fall asleep.
I'm with you.
Brutal.
It's a tough environment. But let's talk about temperature and how that plays a role as well. We've typically inherently heard that cooler temperatures, right?
Yeah.
But there's also things that we can do, whether that's heating the body before bed. So I want to talk about body temperature, and I also want to talk about room temperature and how those go hand in hand for falling asleep.
Yeah. So, heat before bed is amazing. You know, in order for our body to, get into those deep sleep cycles, it has to drop its core temperature like about a degree. And so by applying heat to your body before bed, it has this reaction overreacts and creates this cooling mechanism that allows yourself to cool down very efficiently. So any type of heat before bed, when we talk about like sauna benefits, with all these longevity studies and the heat shock proteins and all this stuff going on, like that's a separate conversation from like just this heating yourself up before bed. So even like hot tub, a bath, a shower, like it's more the actual temperature and raising your temperature just a touch, as opposed to some of the studies going on with saunas. And so when you heat yourself up before bed, it allows yourself to cool down really efficiently and drop that temperature, and you get into those deep sleep cycles slightly faster when you're able to do that.
Yeah, what I've been doing with the temperature drop here in New York, I essentially make myself into a burrito and my heated blanket on the couch, and then I leave my room around 65, 68, and once my temperature is risen and I go into that cooler room, I'm asleep within 5 minutes.
Yeah, but I think the key is having the cooler room, because when you heat yourself up, like being too warm, and the cool room is just allowing your body to cool itself down, like giving it the ability to do it, or the opportunity. So when it's too warm, you're going to be in a bad place. And the other thing is too, like I do sauna every single night. The thing, you don't want to go, you can go a little overboard with the heat, like in a hot tub or a sauna, like so to the point where it's a stressor. So I think that if you're going to do like sauna protocols, it's important to do like a less aggressive, like a lower temperature one for a longer duration, as opposed to like 215 degrees for 20 minutes, because that's probably going to be a stress, which is probably going to like wake you up a little bit.
Right. I typically do like my 185 degree sessions at 25 minutes earlier in the day. If I have the opportunity to go at night, same thing. I'm most likely doing contrast. I'm most likely rotating between the sauna and cold plunge, sauna, cold plunge, depending on the type of year. Now, I don't necessarily want to be coming out of 30 degree water when it's also 30 degrees outside.
I don't know why it makes it so much worse,
it does.
But it's like a million times worse.
Yes.
But the temperature of the water is the same.
Yeah.
But and it's hard to get in there.
It is. So, in the winter months, I definitely love to end that contrast therapy in heat. In the winter months, I'll end it in cold, especially these 95 degree days that we have. I get out of that cold tub, and then, shortly after, I'm going to bed, and I sleep fairly well.
Yeah. I'll usually end on, like, if I do contrast, I'll do like a quick dip in the cold because I'm so hot right after the sauna, but I won't do like a couple minutes. I'll just be like 2 seconds. Yeah. And that's like, I knock out hard. And actually the hot tub's growing on me. Like, the hot tub's very relaxing. Mm-hmm. And again, I do the sauna and the hot, like all that stuff, like the sauna for conversation, the social side of that. Like I said, you can't beat it. That's another thing, going in there with Katie at night, like those two things, like the sauna and watching a show, like that's my perfect nighttime routine. And that's like the most relaxed I'll ever be.
Yeah, I love that. The last one we have for positive impacts, hydration. You touched on this a little bit before, what not to do when it comes to your hydration, but let's talk about what to do for hydration to set ourselves up for great sleep.
Yeah, so, I think that, hydration in general, like, globally across the body, so helpful. But I think the biggest thing to coach with hydration is the timing of it. It's really hard to emphasize how important that is again, the intentionality. I keep saying intentionality, but there's often things we just don't think about, and you're already doing it. It's just shifting it in a way that you're aware that it has another impact. So I think that a lot of people just think, okay, my goal is, 128 ounces of water. Well, like, let's set some smaller goals, in between that. And I also think too, I think people don't realize how much hydration they need in vigorous exercise, and that's when they tend to get in trouble from a hydration perspective. And then obviously being dehydrated can really mess with some of your breathing mechanisms, just because things get dried out, and you tend to snore more. You also tend to wake up more often. So I think having almost like hourly goals and smaller goals, and then being very intentional when you have a vigorous workout, to know exactly how much water you should have, like every 15 minutes, not just like, drink a bottle, like being aware of like how much you're expelling and how much you need to replenish, along with like the electrolyte balance.
I was just going to say, and then the additional minerals that you need as well. I think sodium testing is a huge thing right now that a lot of people, especially if you're a high sweater, I think it's really beneficial to look at how much sodium you're losing. Yeah. And your blood work too. Look at your sodium, look at your potassium. And if you are sweating a lot in the workouts that you're doing, could be beneficial to look at those hydration sticks, especially right after, to replenish.
Yeah. There's actually, I don't remember the name of the company, but there's a new company that actually has like a patch that's like Bluetooth, and it can measure the amount of sodium that you lose in different exercises or in different situations, which is cool because like something like a sauna, it is hard to know exactly how much you're losing and what type of electrolytes you're losing, because I think people, like, people sometimes now, like, electrolytes have exploded, and sometimes people wake up and just hammer electrolytes when it's like 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which is okay, but it's like, okay, well, if you're drinking that 5 times a day, like, have some awareness. It's not like more is always better.
Right.
There's a balance there. And
right.
then like just pure hydration in general is all about that balance. It's not even, I think people don't realize it. They think it's about this amount of water or this amount of electrolytes. It's really just creating that balance of water in and out of the cell.
I think what we're going to start to see in the coming years, I mean, yes, electrolytes have come to a significant boom. I think back in the day it was like, drink some Gatorade. Well, now today we have access to thousands of different products.
Gatorade gets a bad rap though.
I love Gatorade.
So, like,
well, especially from a carb replacement as well.
I know.
Right.
Well, so people are like, they always like give Gatorade a hard time, and I'm like, well, yeah, if you're sitting around.
Yes.
But you realize it was like literally formulated for exactly what it's meant to be used for, like hardcore endurance athletes, football games, things like that. Like it's a pretty solid formula.
Well, it's sitting in the grocery store aisles,
Yeah.
and if you're just picking that up for you to drink at your desk, well, think about it. That's not originally what the formulation was made for. It was made for athletes who are losing significant amount of stress or sweat, but also carb replacement. I mean, you can't get better than having some Gatorade in the middle of like a triathlon
tastes good.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what we're really going to start seeing is more people getting sodium sweat tests, more people really looking at this at a more detailed level on their blood work. I mean, how many people are really looking at their sodium potassium levels unless they're so aggressively under, right? Or some emergency situation has caused their potassium just to crash, and now they're in the hospital, right? I think what we're going to start to see in the next couple of years is people really paying more attention. Well, how do I actually balance my electrolytes? Not just I'm going to pour one of these sticks into my bottle every day or twice a day and think that's good enough. I think it's become more customized.
I agree. I think the blood work thing has started to change and shift. Like I work with blokes, like, you had him on the show, and it's hard to put a value on that too. But the problem is, like you said, people don't often go that route until there's an issue and you don't have a baseline. It's similar to doing like a sleep study. Like if you're only measuring when there's a problem, the data is almost irrelevant, because like those norms you're comparing it to, everybody is different. Everybody does have different norm baseline levels. So especially something like electrolytes, like if you're the upper end of a spectrum on one or on the lower end, like that's going to make you probably feel significantly different, but you would never know if you don't get, regular blood work.
Right. I mean, if something comes back on your blood work and you are maybe you're not even in a concerning zone for your doctor, but maybe you're 1 point over the normal limit. Well, what were you 3 years ago? What were you 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 6 months ago? You could have been 20 points lower than what you were. So now just because you're only 1 point over the quote unquote normal range, well, that could be extremely elevated for where you were 6 months ago. And now it is a problem, because now we have to say, why are you specifically so elevated than where you were half a year ago?
Yeah, I think with the body, it's like the delta, like the change is really where the value is when it comes to measuring things. Like these normal ranges are great, and there's use for it, but like when you're really talking about like someone that's trying to optimize, not someone that has like a really clinical issue going on, but someone just trying to look or feel as good as they possibly can, like you need baselines.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd, you've left us with a ton of valuable tips on how to get the night's sleep we've all been dreaming of. If you had to narrow it down to 3 tips to start with today, what would be the priorities?
Oh man, number 1, like just light years ahead of the rest, is staying within 30 minutes of your wake time and bedtime. Like I can't emphasize how important that is. I would say number 2 is front load your hydration. I think that people really mess up that. I think people don't realize the impact it's having on how many times they wake up throughout the night. And then I think my third one would be just relax. And what I mean by that is there's all this stuff out there. There's a million different data points and wearables and information out there. But at the end of the day, if you have a bad night's sleep or you can't fall back asleep, get up, take your mind off it. Like you're going to be fine. Like people have done amazing things on horrible night's sleep, and the worst thing you can do is sit there and beat yourself up about it. So, it is what it is. You pulled all nighters before. the next day will come and just do better the next night.
Awesome. Todd, thanks so much for stopping by today. Tell our listeners how they can follow along to learn more.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram the most. Probably post all that stuff, just Todd Anderson. And like you said, dreamrecovery.io. We're going to start launching a bunch of free webinars and do more educational stuff, similar to the stuff we talked about today. But I love just helping people out. I try to get to as many messages as I can. So if anybody has any specific sleep issues or they want to talk about something, I'm more than happy to help.
Awesome. Todd, appreciate you stopping by while you're in town.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode here at Bodybuilding.com. Stay tuned for more stories along the way.
Yeah.